Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm sure most of us are currently in a campaign or two of Dungeons & Dragons or another tabletop RPG at the moment. And hopefully, most of us are having a great time. Sometimes, we can be having so much fun playing that we would be open to bringing in a new player. I mean, usually that would be a good thing, more D&D all around. Though, when doing this, it is usually a good idea to vet said new player to make sure they would be a good fit. Unfortunately, that is not the case with these next two D&D horror stories. But, before we get into that, if you would like to help this Doge out, liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing the video goes a long way to help the channel grow, and in turn helps me to keep reading these stories for your listening pleasure. With that out of the way, let's hop right into these stories. 6. The Village Idiot by Reddit user Merlin101. Gather around, children, and listen to the tale of my village idiot, or 6 for short, also known as that guy who just doesn't get it. Warning, this will be a long post. I had been running a game for my college buddies in the early aughts, around 2003 to 4. 3rd edition D&D was the name of the game, with the Splat books, 100-page or so additional content released by Wizards of the Coast for subsets of classes. They were the big thing for us at the time. There was also 3.5e coming out, but we were sticking to 3.0 for the most part because that's what broke-ass college kids do. They use the books they own and not the ones they may or may not be able to afford. I was the DM, and my group consisted of a group that I met through a mutual friend. We had M, the fighter, mutual friend, D, the cleric, J, the warlock, and R, the rogue. The setting was Planescape, set within a homebrew dimension connected to Sigil by a planar portal. It was a pocket dimension that was focused on Colosseum fights, and the party met each other to seek their fortune by forming a gladiator team. The rule of cool was something I firmly believe in, so I encouraged my players to do things that Action Economy wouldn't approve of necessarily. If you believe that you can swing from a chandelier and kick someone at the same time, I was pretty lenient about that sort of thing. In addition, the group got to roll 4d6 on stats, drop the lowest except for one of them, which they could keep the whole 4d6. On the opposite end, I was determined to make the party travel the planes at some point, so I railroaded them into leaving the pocket dimension after they had gained some initial levels. The plan was to make them go level up by traveling the planes for a bit, and then bring them back so they could show off their new power. Well, at the same time I was playing with this group of good friends, I was also part of a college tabletop RPG group. We hung out at a table in the college community center and socialized. They usually met in the middle of the week, and we would see new members filter in from time to time. The RPG group encouraged other groups to accept the new members into their games, since not everyone could play on a Wednesday thanks to their class schedules. Me, being a helpful guy, decided to help out and bring one of the new players into my game, and thus I introduced my group to 6, our new player. 6 seemed likable enough, but he was the type of guy who came off young and naive, even to our group of young 20-somethings. The group was around level 4 or 5, and were already on their planar journey. 6 wanted to play a cleric, which was fine because clerics were powerful at the time, and you could never have enough healing in the group, especially if the group never discovered how to craft the infinite use healing cantrip item. The problem lay in the race that 6 wanted to play, an anthropomorphic bat. I was pretty accepting of letting the players play what they wanted to some degree, and the book that detailed monstrous races was recently released. Anthrobats get a whopping +6 to wisdom, -4 to strength, and -2 to charisma, so it is best suited for a no armor caster build. 6, however, despite many warnings, wanted to wear full plate on his bat character, and in addition to that, he went full min-max and put his lowest score into strength, putting him at a negative bonus. I think he had a 4 strength. While they do have a flight speed of 20 feet, I told him that he wouldn't be able to fly in full plate, and with the bat's walk speed of 5 feet, getting around and doing anything would be very problematic. He told me not to worry about it. He had it all planned out, and it should be fine. The session begins, and guess what Six tries to do? Go on, guess. If you guess he tried to fly in plate mail, after being told multiple times by the DM he would not be able to, then you just won a piece of candy. Enjoy. A session or two goes by, and Six complains non-stop about not being able to be effective with a move speed of 5 feet. When he does take off his plate mail, he gets hit for some moderate amount of damage and has to spend his actions healing himself. By the end of his second session, he's already scowling and grumbling about his character not being fun. I don't want that, so I offer to let him make a new character, hopefully one he can enjoy more. Six keeps all of his accumulated XP and decides to roll up a paladin. Now, we all know paladins can be hit or miss, and nowadays there are a lot more options for a paladin type character. But back then, they came in more or less one flavor, and that was lawful good. The group had just reached a new town, and were invited by a rich noble to visit him in his mansion for a job. Six's new paladin was also invited, as a convenient way to introduce him to the group. They get together at his villa, and the noble describes that monsters are harassing the village, and he needs someone to explore a nearby cave and wipe them out. Now, what do you think Six's paladin does next? Does he A. Get along with the party and complete the mission, doing a good deed and helping the town with its plight? Or B. Cast Detect Evil and immediately attack first the noble and then the party's warlock? Go on, guess. I dare you. That's right, Six used Detect Evil and found the noble, who was evil aligned, to be an affront to all that was good and holy. The noble, who despite being evil, was hiring them to protect his village. Six pulled his longsword and attacked, and the party intervened at the sight of their new employer being attacked. "Why are you guys trying to stop me? He's evil," Six cried. "So, most nobles are," was the reply. At that point, the game halted as the warlock sheepishly raised his hand and said, quote, DM, I'm evil too. Some players can play evil as murder hobos, but every now and then, you can get players that can play party-friendly evil characters. Jay, the warlock, got along with the party so well that I had completely forgotten his alignment, and it came as a minor shock to the other party members. Not that it bothered Six, who immediately changed targets and swung on Jay the warlock for damage. That was pretty much the oh hell no moment for the party. The rest of my players were ambivalent towards Six up to this point, but that quickly changed. They jumped on him faster than a pack of dogs on a three-legged cat, and tore him to shreds, much to Six's squawking chagrin. He couldn't believe that the party would side with the filthy evil warlock over him. D, the cleric, put it pretty succinctly when he said, quote, "We know him," pointing at the lock, "but we don't know you. Of course we side with our friend." They looted him and rolled his body into a ditch, so to speak. We got into a debate over alignments and how they play that night, and I told Six to go ahead and make a third character. I warned him that making a character that would immediately be at odds with the party you're hoping to join wasn't going to be much fun for anyone. While Six made his next character, I went ahead and got the group through the noble's quest, wiping out the monster den. Six's next character would meet the group on the road. The party was attacked by bandits, and Six would hear the commotion and come to investigate. Another easy introduction between PCs, or so I believed. Introducing Six's third character, the Barbarian Forsaker. D&D 3.0 and 3.5 had a plethora of prestige classes, and the Forsaker was part of the Masters of the Wild Splat book. It was a class designed to be entered in early, if you focused on it, because it wasn't restricted by BAB requirement, and you only need 3 feats that could be taken by any class at any level, save bonus feats like Iron Will, Great Fortitude, etc. It was a class that hated magic, and got tons of bonuses from its class, from +1 to a stat per level, to natural healing and spell resistance. It was modeled after the character Conan the Barbarian, and justly so. I'll admit that I didn't check Six's character beforehand. I was busy DMing for the rest of the group that evening, and didn't have the time to vet it like I should and would have. But at the time, I didn't think much about it. I liked the Forsaker class, and thought it would make for a neat addition, and I wasn't worried about party PvP again because the group thrashed his paladin earlier that evening. However, I had seriously underestimated Six's pettiness. As mentioned, Six's barbarian overheard combat and went to investigate. He came across the party fighting a group of bandits trying to rob them. Can you guess what happens next? Do you have any idea what he might do? 6. What do I see? Me. The two groups fighting each other. 6. Are either of them using magic? Me. Well, the bandits aren't, but the warlock is flinging magic blast and the rogue is using his dagger. 6. I go for the rogue. Are the rogue. Oh, here we go again. Part of the reason 6's paladin had his clock cleaned so badly is because R the rogue had a stupidly powerful +5 dagger of returning. It even had elemental properties on it, and he was the party's primary damage dealer. The group laughed because R the rogue was powerful and nobody, myself included, was expecting 6 to put up a fight. However, PvP was initiated, again, and I warned everyone that I would have to do this as impartially as possible so that the players could maintain their agency. By the way, PvP was allowed because of the nature of the game being set in a gladiator setting, and the players knew there was always a possibility that they would walk into an arena and fight each other someday. I remember checking the rules on every book and source for what happened during this fight, and I tried to play it as straight as possible. 6 charged R the rogue and ended up taking a massive amount of damage, but with his barbarian rage activated, his 4d6 rolled strength, and Forsaker bonuses gave him a massive bonus to grappling. He rolled and succeeded his grapple check. He neglected to grapple the rogue, but did manage to wrench his dagger out of his grasp, all while taking damage from the entire group. He then ran over to a rock and used the Sunder feat, snapping the dagger in half. I still remember the shit-eating grin on his face. The rest of the group was angry and annoyed. Some of them hid it well, while others wore it openly. I think the fighter actually desecrated the Forsaker's body, hacking into it with his sword for a while. For me, I was in a bit of a shock. I couldn't believe how blatant, how audacious 6's petty revenge had been. We had warned him to make a character that was party-friendly, or at least I thought I had. That warning was disregarded and taken advantage of in order to fuck with another player who he was jealous and envious of. Was he taking it out on me for not letting his bat fly in full plate, or for not letting him play an overzealous and murderous paladin the way he wanted? Surely he didn't think he could get away with it. 6. Okay, guess I'll make a new character. I had underestimated 6's stupidity. Me. No. 6. What? Why not? Me. Dude, you just did everything I told you not to do, and you expect us to just let you keep doing it. You're done, man. You're not in this game anymore. 6 looked around at the table and found no sympathy or empathy. I remember him being genuinely surprised at this abrupt turn of events, of not being allowed to continue his reign of terror on the group, and most of all, that we had asked him to pack his shit and leave. Though, I will never forget the next thing he said as long as I live. 6. So, can someone give me a ride home? After my facepalm ended and the headache subsided, we directed him to the nearest bus stop. Wow, talk about the balls on that guy. OP was nice enough to invite 6 into his game and possibly make new friends to game with. And even after he didn't like his first character, and OP allowing him to roll up a new one, he still decides to go against the party and even attack one of them. And then to roll up a new character just to try to mess with the rogue due to out-of-game pettiness. It's no wonder OP decided just to boot him completely. Though, I do have to laugh at the fact that 6 felt like he did nothing wrong, and even asked for a ride afterwards. Have any of you ever experienced a player that held on to out-of-game pettiness and then show it in-game? If so, feel free to let us all know. On to the next story. My first experience with Chaotic Stupid, by Reddit user Vina Schnitzel. I've been a GM for about 5 years now. I've GM'd a campaign with close friends and another for lovers of D&D, and I've always had good players. They all got along and were playing to have fun. I have been reading this sub and laughing at many of the stories while thinking, glad that's never happened to me. Well, it has finally happened. I just created a new setting and I'm starting up a new campaign, and I've had my eye on some potential players for a while. I prefer players who are laid back and get along with everyone. I like to run a one-shot with all of the candidates to see if their playstyle can fit with the type of campaign I like to run. And I found a strong group of players and was looking forward to this campaign. I scheduled a session 0, and one of the players informs me that they have mentioned and invited another player. I was upset at first, but after hearing about their credentials and chatting with them through text, I decided to give it a try. Wizzy shows up for session 0 and informs everyone that their character is a kid. Kind of a red flag, but okay. After going over housekeeping and world lore, we do a short playtest. It's a basic goblins have overrun my business and I'll pay you to get rid of them scenario. The group heads to the home of the quest giver, and Wizzy says that he just walks in without knocking. I mention it's the guy's home and it's locked. So he then whips out a lockpick set. Red flag number 2. The other players say that they just knock on the door, and the quest giver unlocks and opens it. Wizzy pushes their way in and starts rummaging through the quest giver's belongings. Red flag number 3. I ignore him and interact with the other players. They all head to the business, and Wizzy finishes up and joins them. They get to the business, and Wizzy states that they are going to just walk into it and cast Fireball. It's level 1. Red flag number 4. I let them know that it's locked, and that the quest giver is hesitant about this group with this psycho child. He reluctantly unlocks the business, and Wizzy, true to their word, walks in and starts burning down the establishment, not with Fireball, but with a torch and control flame. Wizzy starts screaming manically. Major red flag number 5. The quest giver stares in shock, and the rest of the party does as well. They were discussing how they were going to search the establishment right before this, but now they just stand there. They begin to try to put the fires out and stop Wizzy to calm them down. I don't do PvP. Wizzy states they refuse to stop or be calmed down. Red flag number 6. Eventually, Wizzy stops when the other players convince them that they might not get paid for this. And then Wizzy states how excited they are to eat cooked goblin. Red flag number 7. Keep in mind, this is supposed to be a child. They find the goblins, kill them, and in the process, out of game, Wizzy is establishing that they are a boundary pusher when it comes to the rules. Quote, "Can I push the burning crate against a goblin as a bonus action, causing force and fire damage?" No, you can't. Out of combat, Wizzy is very loud and yelping constantly. We play in my basement directly under the rooms of my young kids who are asleep. Red flag number 8. By the end of combat, it's taking everything in me not to just direct every goblin towards Wizzy because they're being annoying. It's also taking everything in the other players not to just direct their attacks at Wizzy, who is looking like more of a threat to the quest giver's establishment than the goblins. They attack the goblins closest to Wizzy, hoping for a natural 1, and that I'll rule that Wizzy is hit by the errant swing or shot. No one is having fun, except Wizzy. Once the goblins are defeated, Wizzy says, quote, "I continue burning down the business." Final red flag. The other players look at them and say, quote, "Yeah, we're not going to let you do that." It's late at this point, and I ignore Wizzy and then interact with the farmer, who immediately leaves to tell the authorities about this psycho child, and I end the session there. Moral of the story? If you're going to run a major campaign, always have at least a one-shot with players you've never played with before mentioning a campaign to them. I still don't understand why some people come into a game just to want to destroy everything, and act in a way that would get you dead or arrested if that world was real. Is it some deep-seated thing in some people that they want to release in a game since they can't in real life? Also, I can't imagine that this player was experienced in tabletop RPGs in any fashion. Though when I asked OP about it, he informed me that Wizzy apparently said that he was a DM for a West Marches campaign, and that they have been DMing since 4th edition. So maybe they experienced this type of thing when they're playing in their games, and just wanted to get back at the universe or something. Or they were just lying out of their ass. What do you think? Have you ever had a new player come into the fold only to turn out to be that guy? If so, let us know in the comments. If you have a story that you would like to be read on the channel, you can always post it to the channel subreddit r/DnD Doge, post a link in the comments, or even just DM me on Twitter. As always, I appreciate all of you, and hope all your rolls are natural 20s. Until next time.